Today we'll be hearing from Dr. Grzegorz Blicharz. Dr. Grzegorz Blicharz is the director of the Center for Law, Religious Freedom and assistant professor at the Department of Roman Law at the Faculty of Law and Administration of Jagiellonian University in Kraków. His work focuses on Roman law in comparative perspective, on comparative freedom of religion and freedom of speech, and especially on the impact of religious freedom on the development of private law and legal doctrine. He has held visiting appointments at the Institute of European and Comparative Law at the University of Oxford and at Antonin Scalia Law School at George Mason University.
It is not very often that you get to talk about your own great-grandfather at an academic conference. And yet today I would like to tell you a little bit about my great-grandfather. We are in a family setting. You can see my great-grandfather up to the right above me. I'm not very used to speak about my family stories at the conference. Usually I speak about Roman law, comparative law, religious freedom, and freedom of speech. But today I think that my family story can have some implications also in this respect. So I a little bit would like to show the role of Polish people during the World War II on the example of my great-grandfather. And I think that this story may have implications for modern times, can be a lesson about building bridges in difficult times, building bridges in very divisive political context, although not comparable to our times. But history may teach us a lot, especially about building community, working for common good, and taking care for others. So Leon Mazurek, that's the name of my great-grandfather from my mom's side, was always a historical figure for me. He died on November 14, 1984, at the age of 88. I, on the other hand, was born in 1988, so I always met him as a hero of family stories. My great-grandfather was for me distant in time and context, and I always wanted to know more about him. It is precisely the desire to verify one of the family stories that has brought me here with you today to talk about Leon Mazurek. I love family stories. And what was the story behind it? So my grandparents on mother's side, my mother and my uncle, told that during World War II, Leon Mazurek helped people who were looking for hiding places and also helped rescue a Jew, Moses Applebaum. And for rescuing Jew, for helping Jew, there was a death penalty at that time. Only in Poland, any kind of help to Jews was punishable by death for the rescuer and their family. So Poles were terrorized by this death penalty, but they did not resist to help Jews. The first legal act providing for the death penalty for Poles who helped Jewish people was introduced by Governor Hans Frank on 15th October 1941. My family story tells about a Jew who was saved during World War II by hiding on the church grounds, and who after the war visited my great-grandfather Leon Mazurek to thank him, but also to tell him that he happened to see Leon from the hiding place. The famous line goes, "Leon, I saw you during the Corpus Christi procession." The story also always emphasized that Leon Mazurek served as a mayor of Firlej for a time during World War II. Where is Firlej? Where does the story take place? Firlej is a town located in east-central Poland, near Lubartów and Kock, and not far from Lublin, east of the Vistula River. Here you can see Vistula River. Here is Warsaw, capital of Poland. Here is Lublin. Here is Lubartów, Kock, and here is Firlej. Well located near Lublin and just south of the strategic Wieprz River. Here is the Wieprz River. Ancient one. Firlej witnessed many battles for independence with both Russians and the Germans. In the 19th century, when Poland did not exist on the map and was split between Russia, Prussia, and Austria, a victorious battle was fought near Firlej during the so-called November Revolt against the Russian Empire on May 9, 1831. Many of Firlej's residents took part in another uprising, the so-called January Uprising in 1863, which ended in defeat, and Russians stripped Firlej of its town status, city status, in 1869 as a political repression. To this day, one can visit the cemetery of the January Uprising insurgents in nearby Sobolevo. In Firlej, Marshal Józef Piłsudski visited the army before one of the counterattacks on the Bolshevik lines in 1920, known as the so-called Wieprz River Maneuver. You can see Wieprz River in the background, which led to the Battle of Kock and then victory in the so-called Battle of Warsaw, famous Battle of Warsaw in 1920, which stopped Red Army from spreading communism further westwards into Europe, and was claimed one of the most important battles in the history. On the other hand, during the invasion of Poland in 1939, from 2nd to 6th October 1939, again near Kock, the last battle between Poland and Germany, fought by the regular army, took place. Although Polish General Franciszek Kleberg claimed victory over General Gustav von Wittersheim's unit in this battle, strategically the Germans won. Firlej is also a testament to the old Poland, to the first Commonwealth, Res Publica, as a town founded in 1557 by Mikołaj Firlej. That's why the name of Dąbrowica. The town of Firlej was always characterized by its multi-religious nature, which is important for our story, of course. Even then, it was home to Catholics and Jews. At the end of the 16th century, the town was a center of Calvinism when Mikołaj Firlej became its propagator. In the 17th century, the town was again dominated by Catholics. In October 1796, the owner of the Firlej, Prince Janusz Sanguszko, issued a privilege equalizing the rights and duties of Christians and Jews living in Firlej, which improved the situation of the latter. In 1901, 1906, the local rabbi was Abraham Rachmil Bromberg. So at the end of the 18th and 19th centuries, Jews settled here in increasing numbers. In fact, Firlej was near extremely important places on the map of the Jewish community at the time. Kock and Lubartów were important Jewish centers, and Lublin was considered the Jerusalem of the Kingdom of Poland, a state under Russian rule after deportation of Poland. Yakov Yitzhak Halevi Horowitz, known as the seer from Lublin, a leading figure in the early Hasidic movement, was active here. And in 1930, the Yeshiva Chachmei Academy, the largest Talmudic university in the world, was founded in Lublin. Before World War II, Firley was still inhabited by a fairly large group of Jews, ranging from 200 to 300 people, as evidenced, for example, by school documents, where Jewish children studied together with Polish children, signed their names on letters together, as you can see in the picture presented. As well, there are governmental documents that attest to the conduct of serious economic activity in Firley, both by Jewish and Polish craftsmen and merchants. For example, Aute Hochlerner sold violin strings and foreign fruit. There was also a synagogue here. Firley was thus a multicultural town, holding to the Polish tradition of religious tolerance. So Leon Mazurek was born here on August 13, 1896, and here he learned to live together with others and care for the common good. As mayor, he probably became part of the old family traditions known from Firley's history. The archives preserve references to Thomas Mazurek as Firley's quartermaster mayor in 1729, as well as earlier about the illustrious Krzysztof Mazurek, a townsman and citizen of Firley who drew up his last will and testament in 1693. While the family connection to Leon Mazurek may be distant, what we know about Leon confirms that his family tradition included, first, ability to take care for others, knowing that what matters is the community and caring for each other for the common good. I cover you, you cover me, we are safe, and we allow each other to live. Secondly, the ability to navigate legal issues and public records. And thirdly, the ability to organize and manage. Even to this day, my mother and uncle recall Leon's exemplary discipline that they observed as children, even in very minor matters, like gymnastics and cold showers every morning. This is very modern even today. And finally, the importance attached to education and to learning. So the 2023 publication, Wartime Rescue of Jews by the Polish Catholic Clergy, the testimony of survivors and rescuers, recalls the figure of Father Szymon Tomaszewski, parish priest in Firley during World War II, and the story of a Jew, Moses Applebaum, and his daughter, Dwoira Applebaum, whom the priest hid in the church, in the parsonage attic and in the barns or a pigsty, and thus saved them at a time when helping Jews was threatened by death penalty. The Germans reportedly killed those in the area and sowed terror among the priests. It should be mentioned that the story of Father Tomaszewski is very well known in Firley and was remembered by Moses Applebaum as well. In fact, Moses Applebaum himself rescued Father Tomaszewski shortly after the war, when the communists organized a trial for the Polish priest in which he was to be convicted of underground activities against communist organizations. Moses testified that as a priest he had saved a Jew during the war, which in fact saved Father Tomaszewski at that time. Later, Moses Applebaum also visited Firley to thank Father Tomaszewski. Probably during one of these occasions, he met my great-grandfather Leon Mazurek, a fact that has been preserved in our family history. Later, also, the family of Moses Applebaum visited Firley. More recently, Father Tomaszewski was also honored with a commemorative plaque in the parish church in Firley. Neither in the aforementioned article about Father Szymon Tomaszewski and Moses Applebaum, nor in the recently published memoirs of Paul's Firley's residence at the time about the fate of the Jews in Firley, like the memoirs and the recording of interview with Czesław Bisz and others, there was any mention of Leon Mazurek and his role during World War II. So the story of my great-grandfather was as if he had been forgotten. And yet I remember very, very well how my grandfather, Zdzisław Warsz, told me that Leon Mazurek knew about the rescuing of a Jew, as well as about the tunnels that connected the church with the rectory and the barns, so the hiding places. This motivated me to conduct a research query and confront the family story with other historical sources. And the breakthrough moment turned out to be reaching the account of Moses Applebaum himself, which is available in the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum's databases. In an account presented on 12th of October 1946 before the Provincial Jewish Historical Commission in Lublin, Mojżesz Applebaum tells about the events in Firley during the war, and he mentions a Pole, Leon Mazurek, who was appointed a town mayor in place of the earlier German town mayor. Worth noting, he wrote Pole with a capital letter and a German with a lowercase letter. Interestingly, he refers to Leon as town mayor, not village mayor, which also reflects the history of Firley. The residents felt that Firley was a town, city that was only deprived of this status for political reasons. Yet it remained the center of local life, the seat of a municipality. So my great-grandfather's story, thanks to Moses Applebaum's testimony, turns out to be even more interesting than in the family tale, and light is finally shed on his activities as mayor in Firley. Well, Applebaum reports that Leon Mazurek played an important role not only for him, but for the entire Jewish community in Firley. The key sentence of the account is this: he was a member of the underground organization. In view of this, the situation of Jews has somewhat improved. Moses Applebaum places it as part of his account of the fate of the Jews in Firley in a context that has always interested me: how my great-grandfather became mayor of Firley and what he did during the war. Applebaum explains, after some time, when all the Volksdeutsche Germans were transferred from us to Warthegau, town mayor Kropp, the German, also left with the others, and a Pole, Leon Mazurek, was appointed in his place. And again, he was a member of the underground organization. In view of this situation, the situation of the Jews has somewhat improved. This short information carries a lot of content. First, the events that Applebaum describes refer to 1941, most likely to autumn, certainly before December 1941. These are therefore still times before the beginning of Operation Reinhardt. The Operation Reinhardt is the code name of a secret German plan in World War II to exterminate Polish Jews in the General Government District of German-occupied Poland. This deadliest phase of the Holocaust was marked by the introduction of German extermination camps. So at that time that Moses is reporting, however, already any help offered to Jews was threatened by death penalty. Second, like most Poles, Leon Mazurek immediately became involved in underground activities, becoming a member of an underground organization. In light of Applebaum's Feder account, it seems that he had in mind Leon's affiliation with armed resistance, established in the aftermath of German and Soviet invasions in September 1949, which in 1942 was renamed as the Home Army, AK, the dominant resistance movement in German-occupied Poland during the World War II. In fact, several underground organizations were active already in Firley and the surrounding area, including also communist partisans, which later became part of the People's Guard. So Leon's appointment as mayor can be seen in two ways. Either no one wanted to be a mayor, as the local German colonists who had previously held the post as the person close to the Germans and the other Volksdeutsche were displaced, and it was decided to go for someone known at least for good management, or more likely, the underground organization decided to seize the opportunity that the local German colonists had been displaced and decided to fill the position with its own men. Both reasons may have contributed to the selection of Leon Mazurek. It is worth noting that every municipality in Poland at that time had an underground clandestine mayor. And since Leon belonged to an underground organization, it is likely that he was already appointed to this position within the underground organization, and it was then smoothly carried out to make the Germans to appoint him mayor of Firley. In fact, the Germans had already had their Firley-born man as secretary in the municipality since 1939, a Pole who prided himself on being almost German and collaborated with the Germans, causing much harm to everyone in Firley, as evidenced by the post-war testimony of Leon Mazurek and other Firley residents. Hence, holding the post of mayor while simultaneously being involved in the underground organization was quite a challenge for Leon in these circumstances. Third, it is obvious to Applebaum that the activities of the underground organization to which Leon belonged were positively associated, almost automatically offering hope for an improvement for Jewish people, which shows how underground Polish state contributed to helping and rescuing Jewish people during the war. Fourth, indeed, this hope for improvement was fulfilled by Leon Mazurek. Applebaum, writing in 1946 that under Leon Mazurek the situation of the Jews had somewhat improved, was already writing from a different perspective. So these positive words had much more meaning than before. At that time, it would have already been inconceivable to say that the situation of Jews under German occupation could have improved, since it was planned as a genocide of European Jews and not normal occupation. And yet, during Leon's tenure as town mayor, there was still the possibility of a relatively normal life, which Applebaum still remembered after the war, recognizing that indeed the initial period of extermination of the Jews had passed, and that at least from the autumn of 1941, thanks to Leon, the Jews had a better life in Firley. In the next sentence of his account, Applebaum gives evidence to support his opinion. He gives an example of an action organized by an underground organization which had to be agreed with the mayor, since it concerned the implementation of a German decree. So in December 1941, a decree went out about the forced surrender by Jews of all furs. The secret organization conducted a clandestine operation to hide the better furs and only the damaged and worthless ones were given to the Germans. In turn, it is worth remembering that the mayors were obliged to accurately carry out the orders of the occupation authorities. They were personally responsible for this and for the delivery of products claimed by the Germans. So in this situation, Leon and his underground organization behaved in an exemplary manner and took advantage of an intelligent solution. In Applebaum's opinion, on the one hand, it protected the property of the Jews, and on the other hand, made it possible to avoid sanctions for not fulfilling the occupier's order. So Leon Mazurek was a hero of everyday life. Thanks to him, the Jews were able to function relatively normally. There was also his own merit in this. By taking care of the documentation and good organization, he pushed back German repression and sanctions. Even then, however, a split within the underground organizations made itself known. According to Applebaum, at the same time as the action happened, the reactionary underground organization threw up leaflets inciting anti-Semitism. These leaflets titled Pole and Struggle. There was coat of arms, white eagle and sword, and it explained that the Jews had strengthened the Germans by giving them force. Either this was due to a misunderstanding of a situation, the high secrecy of the action itself, so that it would not be revealed to the Germans or the other Poles, or this was due to the growing competition and differences between underground organizations. It is difficult to prejudge. What is clear, however, is that at this point it was not a sensible action. This split within the Polish underground also affected Leon Mazurek and his family after the war. Bandits posing as the Home Army or other underground organizations raided his house for the purpose of robbery. And when it turned out that he didn't have much valuables, maybe they were looking for those poors. Who knows? They took what they could and beat Leon severely, his wife Saturnina, and even their children, including my grandmother Janina, who was 12 at the time. Later, the family of one of the bandits apologized for the incident and returned the things they had taken. Leon was evidently resilient, since he held on to his post even after such an action with force. Indeed, the municipal records preserved in the archives, so the Firley municipality budget from 1941, 42, and 1942-43, which bear Leon Mazurek's signatures as mayor, confirm the good management of property. The revenue books agree. In 1942, revenues amounted to over 160,000 zlotys and exactly the same amount of expenses. Moreover, in the 1941-42 budget, there were funds set aside for books for the poorest, medicine for the sick poor, and maintenance for 2 orphans and an old woman, 360 zloty each, and there was even a subsidy for the Polish Red Cross of 100 zloty. Looking at the budget, one gets an impression of a kind of normality. There were expenses for a subsidy for a doctor to have a midwife to keep her in the community, as she provides free medical assistance to 700 displaced persons and wards. There were funds and payments for repairing buildings, bridges, repayment of loans for reconstruction of a school, renovation of school halls, paving the street in front of the community office. It is still there, drawing up orientation boards in the community, and buying needed equipment, renting school premises for the doctor, hiring agronomists, etc. As of the 1st January 1942, Firlej municipality had over 9,000 residents, 11 windmills, 1 motor mill, and 2 brickyards. The local population joined the underground. All the firefighters were in the underground organization, the Home Army, together with Father Tomaszewski. Leon Mazurek even tried to intercede for the family of Panic, but to no avail. The Germans killed the entire Polish family, perhaps for cooperating with the partisans or some bandits. Reasons are not entirely clear. Leon Mazurek must have taken care of the community efficiently, since as a Pole he remained mayor from the fall of 1941 to April 1942. But he knew what line he could not cross. And for this reason, as Applebaum reports, Mazurek was removed from his position as mayor. This was most likely in April 1942, since his last signature as mayor was on 4th of April 1942. He didn't suffer any punishment, nor was he displaced. This means that he was removed not because of mismanagement or shortfalls. In April 1942, the state of municipality's budget was satisfactory. Liabilities amounted to 16,813 zlotys and assets to 267,000 zlotys. Mazurek either outright refused to carry out the tightened German policy, at the time aimed primarily at Jews, or the Germans decided in advance that they had to have their men there, and therefore Leon Mazurek had to be removed. His place on Applebaum rights was taken by the commissioner Peter Graz. And he was very hostile to the Jews and contributed greatly to their annihilation. Thus ended a period of a relative calm in Firlej. As Applebaum reports, in Firlej in April 1942, there was still no anti-Jewish action. There was not even a special Jewish quarter. My great-grandfather's heroism was that Firlej became an oasis, intelligently managed, without full confrontation with the occupier, which made it possible not only to save Firlej's Jews, but also Jews from other localities wanted to move to Firlej. We have evidences of numerous applications for change of registration to Firlej. Exactly at this time, the construction of Majdanek began. So a German concentration and extermination camp. By the way, my grandmother on my father's side, as a Polish woman, survived Majdanek. It was also targeted to Polish people and was sent to forced labor in Potsdam and later emigrated to the USA. So in March 1942, Jews were deported from Lublin. Many of them were transported to Majdanek, but many decided to escape to Firlej and Lubartów. Firlej also received Slovakian Jews transported to Poland, precisely at the time when Leon Mazurek was mayor. The fact that there were no major excesses in Firlej, as well as provocations by various gangs, is certainly one of the achievements of both Leon Mazurek and Father Szymon Tomaszewski, both of whom belonged to the underground organization. Moreover, even Jewish conspiracy developed in Firlej, thanks to this. Applebaum belonged to the Jüdische Soziale Selbsthilfe, JSS. They rescued some Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto and moved them to Firlej. In comparison, in nearby Serokobla, as a consequence of the killing of a German colonist or SS man by a gang, here sources vary, the Germans murdered all Jews in Serokobla and 212 other Jews, some of whom were rescued by the Polish Adameczek family named Righteous Among the Nations. So my great-grandfather Leon Mazurek, by his attitude as a mayor of Firley, contributed to making Firley, at least for a while, a human place in a inhuman world. And he was remembered in a special way by Moses Appelbaum, a Jew rescued by the Catholic priest Szymon Tomaszewski, which certainly would not have been possible without Leon Mazurek as well. So Leon became a hidden hero, whose role and importance is reminded today by Appelbaum's testimony. This is another example of a Pole who behaved as he should. Thank you so much.